Hi, my name is John Santana, and today I'll be going over the ethics of loot boxes. Loot boxes have been a common method of obtaining items in video games for the past couple years, and in recent years, they have been notorious due to their resemblance to traditional gambling mechanics, leading countries across the globe to implement regulations on these loot boxes. In 2010, Team Fortress 2 was one of the first Western games to introduce loot boxes to their game while also making it free to play. Gabe Newell, the president of the company, reported that after this change, their player base had increased by a factor of 5. Since then, it has been a common trend for video games to have loot boxes as a reward system. With the growing population of video games, companies are trying to make as much revenue as possible with the addition of downloadable content, microtransactions, and of course, loot boxes. Loot boxes, as the name suggests, are virtual containers that give players a random reward when opened. The game Overwatch, which was released in 2016, had one of the least controversial loot boxes within the gaming industry. After getting the game, players would receive a loot box every time they leveled up, or they had the option to purchase them with real money. Each loot box contained four randomly selected items that ranged between four rarities, which were common, rare, epic, and legendary, and Overwatch loot boxes only contain cosmetic items which had no impact on the gameplay, which is unlike Genshin Impact. Genshin Impact falls under the genre of gacha games, and these games use loot boxes as a way for players to progress. At the beginning of the game, players will choose a starter character, and afterwards, the only way to obtain other characters and weapons is through wishing, which is a type of loot box system that they have in Genshin Impact. Since players can only obtain better characters and equipment through wishing, the game's progression is locked behind a random outcome. This causes a disparity in progress between players who have more time and money than those who do not. And when we look at this through Aristotle's business ethics, we can classify this to be unethical because users who have less time or money will struggle to make progress, making the game not fair for everyone. And even if players do have the time and money to be able to open these loot boxes, there is still a chance that they will not get a high rarity character.
When the currency dries out, then they will like poke you and meddle around with you to try and get the premium currency. There's a feeling of despair, but you just want to keep on going one more time, one more time. And then finally, when I managed to get the feeling of euphoria, it's like it just engulfs everything.
You see like your friends get them, you see like people post like that they got them and you're like, oh, it's possible for me. I get annoyed that I'm not getting it and I feel like I really wasted money, I might as well spend more to get it, which makes no sense.
To combat that, Genshin Impact has a system called Pity. This feature basically guarantees a character or weapon of the highest rarity after a certain number of failures. There are other games like Teamfight Tactics which also have the implementation of a pity system, but the pity system is a double-edged sword. If a player is purchasing loot boxes, they'll be more inclined to keep going rather than stopping because they've already put in the time, money, and effort to open these loot boxes. This is known as the sunk cost fallacy. On top of this, the content of the loot boxes may contain limited time rewards, creating a sense of urgency and causing a fear of missing out for players. This may also increase the risks of players wanting to spend excess amounts of money on these random outcomes to obtain these limited time rewards. Whether or not the pity system was intended to be in these games, it is unhealthy for players as it creates a kind of addiction to this gambling like system, which can be especially dangerous if those exposed are minors and younger players, as they don't fully understand the risks of gambling. Once again, if we look through Aristotle's business ethics, it is evident that it is unethical because it is not prudent. They don't take into consideration the future of these players when it comes to their mental health and financial stability. In 2022, the popular game Fortnite was fined $245 million by the United States Federal Trade Commission for using cognitive biases to get players to purchase their in game currencies called V-Bucks. V-Bucks can be used to buy cosmetics and Fortnite's version of loot boxes called Upgrade Llamas. Epic Games, the publishers of Fortnite, allowed players to use a card registered to the account to purchase V-Bucks without any verification, even for purchases up to $500. This led younger players to bill their parent and guardian's credit cards without their knowledge. Epic Games fraud and risk team advised the company to add a level of verification for V-Bucks purchases, but the company only did so after billing players millions of dollars. If left unchecked, minors could have spent hundreds of dollars on Fortnite partaking in these gambling like activities. Meanwhile, the company was fully aware that this was happening. Once again, unethical business practices. Other governments across the globe have taken action against loot boxes and predatory business practices associated with them. Belgium passed a ban on all loot boxes that could be purchased with real money, and after deciding that loot boxes were considered gambling, the Belgian government imposed a hefty fine on companies that did not comply. This fine could be doubled if there were minors involved in the incident. The UK Parliament also set limitations on loot boxes. They reported that loot boxes were not gambling as they were being purchased with virtual currencies and not real money. But they did mention that loot boxes could have a negative impact on mental health and gambling related issues, especially with minors. Further studies should be conducted on how loot boxes affect the mind of their consumers to properly determine how to regulate them. But until then, governments should keep these companies in check the best way they see fit. Loot boxes have been a growing concern for the past couple of years due to their gambling like nature. They often create unfair experiences for players while simultaneously creating a risk of addiction, making them an unethical ways for game companies to make a profit. Alternate monetization methods should be implemented to reduce the mental and financial risk loot boxes create. Until then, it is up to consumers to stay safe and educated. Thank you for watching and have a wonderful day.